And here we have now a factual report about the situation in 1976 from the news reporter.
Good evening. Today's report will be focusing on the state of race relations in Britain since 1947. In 1948, many Jamaicans came to Britain seeking employment, accompanying parents, the National Health Service, for marriage reasons, for education, housing, food, family, and because natural disasters like hurricanes devastated Jamaica in 1944. From 1900s to the 1950s, around 1 in 10 of the population emigrated from the Caribbean. The arrival of the Empire Windrush in 1948 brought a key moment in history, as although it wasn't the first boat to bring immigrants from the Caribbean, it was the first to be met by newsreel cameras and groups of racist British holding placards reading "Go Home." This event is believed to be the first race relation activity in a negative light. In 1949, race relation issues were brought to the forefront of politics as many MPs were playing the race card with slogans like "Keep Britain White" to win votes and play on the fear of British working class voters. In 1965 to 66, a Race Relations Act was passed. This made it illegal to discriminate against anyone due to their colour or race, although racism still continued in areas such as housing and employment, and 734 out of 982 complaints due to racism or racist comments were dismissed by the Relations Board. 1967 saw an increase in racism as the National Front was formed, which was a political party who were openly racist, and a small population of Britain voted for them and followed their ways.
Okay, this is Panorama reporting on the problems with race relations in 1976.
1958, Summer of Violence brought to the forefront of politics the increasing issue of immigration and racial discrimination. Like it or not, in 1958, you were made to make a decision about which side to take. The side of the coloured newcomers and be criticised, or follow the crowd, what your friends believed. Either way, you would have been judged and judged each other by what we believed and saw around us. It began in post-war time, 1948-1950s. Britain was in need of workers to help rebuild its economy, so advertisements were distributed finding workers from around the colonial world. However, most of the immigrants that came were from the Caribbean, East Africa and the Indian subcontinent. It is not a surprise immigrants grouped together. Britain was known for being stubborn, racist and hostile. It surely wasn't easy for coloured people to integrate with their neighbours. Even banks and building societies were reluctant to give loans and mortgages to coloured people. Local authorities were also unhelpful and obstructive. For example, there were accommodation issues for coloured families because the general opinion of them was bad news. It was hard for them to find somewhere to stay. Rooms to let, no dogs, no coloured men. Even thought so lowly of them in comparison to the dogs. However, the public view may have thought the black and Asian immigrants were just abusing the benefits system. Polls actually showed 25% of people blamed blacks for violence, but a larger majority of 80% favoured controls of some sort. This larger majority would be important in years to come. It all really comes to a head in the summer of 1958, Nottingham and Notting Hill, where violent clashes occurred. White youths had carried out violent attacks on the immigrants of Nottingham, home to about 2,500 Caribbeans and 600 Asians. In August, large-scale fighting broke out at St Anne's Well Road area. Nottingham's 2 MPs eventually called an end to this, after new laws which allowed deportation were released. However, later that year, in September, a similar riot broke out in Notting Hill. Teddy boys and other white youths attacked Caribbean people and their homes for 3 consecutive nights, in which 400 white youths used petrol bombs. The police did not respond to this, so the coloured victims fought back. This only shows evidence of how corrupt, racist and easily influenced people of even a high status were. But it did not stop there. Press and politicians condemned the attacks. They did not help the situation. Indeed, some politicians fuelled racial discrimination with their forthright attacks on the coloured population, such as Rivers of Blood speech by Enoch Powell in 1968, which stirred up enormous controversy and had a huge impact on the immigration debate on Britain for many years to come.
Thank you very much. And do you have anything to say about the National Front in Britain and any current problems in 1976? Do you think they are a great problem?
Well, I think the general view of the public was that they're still quite racist against everything, and so it did kind of change and the opinion did evolve, but there were still issues going on.
Okay, thank you very much.
There are a lot of scare stories about race relations in the riots of Notting Hill and Nottingham in 1958, and frankly irresponsible candidates referring to our immigrant communities as niggers. This is scandalmongering by the press. People speak of huge numbers of immigrants flooding into our country daily. This is a ridiculous overstatement. Since 1957, emigration has exceeded immigration. We should be optimistic, since the last major violence occurred in 1958, which was 18 years ago. It's in the past, and now we're ready for the future. The issue I'm going to address today is race relations. Being a racist was acceptable in Britain for too long, but now I believe there is plenty of reason to be optimistic about relations between us and our immigrant neighbours. We have recently passed the Race Equality Act. This will not only discourage the racist among us, but us politicians who run the country. Amongst us, the most unacceptable racism towards immigrant communities. This act has ensured that no racially offensive music, etc., will be banned. Riots like Notting Hill will be reduced. Discrimination against immigrants in the workplace will also be reduced, as the tribunals have been set up to ensure no one feels disadvantaged when applying for a job. The Commission of Racial Equality investigates racism. All these points have begun the journey to eradicate racism and improve race relations in Britain. The legislative framework we have created will mean all British people from the Commonwealth and from Britain itself will be able to benefit from this wonderful country.
Thank you very much. A very positive view from our politician there, despite the fact that the National Front were marching on Saturday. You regard them as just a minority of the community then, do you?
Yes, with this new legislation, I believe that people will start to see sense and realise that racism and British nationalism isn't always the way to have a peaceful country.
OK, we look forward to attitudes changing fast.